Da 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 da. Welcome back to disenFRIENDSchised, where we dissect friends one episode at a time and call out the grief that nobody names. I'm Bulinski Mathison, your host and founder of TheNakedGrief. I'm a published author with lived experience, years of education, and a grief coach. And here we look at disenfranchised grief through the lens of friends. If you're new here and you're like, wait, what is disenfranchised grief? It's everything other than death, the stuff you don't get a casserole for. Today is season 2, episode 5, the one with 5 steaks and an eggplant. This episode is a masterclass in money grief and belonging grief. The kind that shows up when your friendships are real, but your bank accounts are not quite the same. It's also a masterclass in how people protect their pride. Some people spend without thinking. Some people go quiet and shrink. Some people get sarcastic. And some people refuse help because it feels like being labeled. And none of that is just about money. It's about dignity. The episode opens with Chandler and Joey getting a wrong number. It's a call from a woman named Jade who's looking for her ex, Bob. Chandler, because he's Chandler, decides to pretend that he is Bob. This is a small but important grief-adjacent theme that runs through the entire episode. Performing. Chandler performs confidence. Ross performs money isn't an issue. Monica performs I'm fine. And the other three, Rachel, Phoebe, and Joey, perform being okay with things that they can't afford. So there's a couple of plot threads throughout. The first is the gang starting to plan a birthday celebration for Ross. It's a gift, a cake, and concert tickets. Rachel, Phoebe, and Joey hear the price tag and immediately go into that familiar internal math. Can I swing this without messing up my rent, groceries, etc.? They don't say it like that. They just get quiet, or they make a joke, or they try to opt out. This is disenfranchised grief. The grief of being the friend who has to calculate everything. There's no sympathy card for I can't afford to belong. Another plot thread is Monica getting a promotion. When Rachel, Phoebe, and Joey start calculating the math, they start also talking about how whenever somebody has something to celebrate, it's always go someplace nice. And the three can't really afford to always go someplace nice. So Monica gets a promotion and they want to celebrate at a fancy restaurant, someplace nice. And at dinner, the ordering becomes the loudest, quiet thing in the room. Ross, Monica, and Chandler casually order expensive entrees. Rachel orders a side salad that's not going to be on the side of anything. Joey orders a small pizza, and Phoebe orders a cup of soup. And then Ross suggests splitting the bill evenly. This is the moment the episode turns, because splitting the bill evenly isn't fair when people didn't order evenly. It's just socially convenient for the people who can afford it. And if you've ever been the person staring at a menu thinking, I'm going to order what I can afford and pretend I'm not hungry, you know this feeling. And then we have the confrontation, naming the money gap. And for anybody that's ever had to deal with confrontational moments, this is tough. It's hard to call out what makes you uncomfortable. And it takes that inner strength to find the way to present it without presenting it unbalanced or too emotional. So Phoebe and Joey finally say it. They're tired of feeling like the broke friends. And Rachel backs them up. Ross's response is honest and also revealing. He basically admits he never thinks about money as an issue. This is what happens in friendships quite often. People with money don't mean any harm. They're not villains. They're just unaware. And the people without don't want pity. They just want consideration. Maybe you don't always go someplace nice. Maybe you just go out to a pizza place and split a large pizza that costs everybody $5 instead of $30, $40 a piece. There's always a way to compromise. But you have to speak your mind in order for people to understand where you're at. Communication is key to avoid grief. The next day, they try and do a fix, and it kind of backfires. Monica tries to make it better by bringing dinner. 5 steaks and an eggplant for Phoebe. Ross, Monica, and Chandler also buy the concert tickets for everyone. Rachel, Phoebe, and Joey refuse to go to the concert. Not because they don't want to go, because it feels like charity. They've identified that they don't want to always feel like the poor folks, but now the overcompensating is belittling them and making them even more uncomfortable. So the coaching truth is, when people are already feeling small, help can feel like a spotlight. They don't want to feel like a project. They want to be equals. If you've ever been on either side of this, you can look at it with a sentence like, I want to include you without making you feel singled out. What would feel respectful to you? That one question could save a friendship. And if you're on the other end of it, I want to be included without feeling singled out. What would feel respectful to me is, you can't complain about something without having a solution or a possible solution to the problem. Moving on to the third plot. Ross, Monica, and Chandler go to the concert, which is Hootie and the Blowfish. Meanwhile, Rachel, Phoebe, and Joey stay at home, and they're playing a guessing game of how many fingers is Joey holding up behind his back. And then we divert back to the beginning of the episode where Chandler is explaining to Ross that he had sex with Jade and that he's convinced he was amazing. And he describes how she was biting her lip to keep from screaming his name. And then the phone rings. And Jade calls back, and Chandler answers as Bob. She tells him the truth. It was mediocre. She was biting her lip to not scream Bob's name, and it was way too short. This is humiliation wrapped in comedy, but it's also a grief moment. The grief of realizing you're not who you thought you were to someone. Chandler performed confidence, and reality showed up and said, nope. So plot thread 4 is the band meetup and the hickey. At the coffee house the next day, Monica, Ross, and Chandler casually mention that they met the band after the concert. Rachel, Phoebe, and Joey are jealous. Then Phoebe notices Monica has a hickey, the work of a blowfish, she explains. And this is secondary grief by proximity. They weren't at the concert. They didn't get the experience. They didn't get the band meet. They didn't get the hickey story. And the people who could afford to go are now casually flexing the perks. It's not mean. It's just oblivious. And in the middle of them kind of puffing their chests out a little bit and sharing this amazing story about after the concert, Monica gets a page and she returns the call to work and explains that the 5 steaks weren't a gift. They were a kickback, or finds out that they were a kickback. And by accepting them, she broke corporate policy and she is fired. Instantly, the money argument disappears. Everyone consoles her. Joey even tries to pay the coffee bill for her, but then asks Chandler for $5 because he doesn't have it. This is the grief pivot. When someone you love is in crisis, suddenly your own pain feels smaller, or at least it gets reorganized. Monica's job loss is bigger than the money gap, so the group rallies. But notice that Joey still doesn't have the $5. The money gap didn't go away. It just got quiet again. And now, instead of 3 in the group struggling to feel like they need to meet the other 3 that aren't concerned with money, now it's a little more unbalanced, because now we still have 2, Chandler and Ross, who are forgetful of or oblivious to the other 4's financial issues. And we've got Monica, who's now dropped into that category because she doesn't know when or how she's going to get that next job. So the final plot moment is Jade's final callback. And the episode ends with Jade calling back, and she leaves a message on the answering machine asking for one last night with Bob. And Joey, who's been listening, jumps up to grab the phone. He slips and falls off the couch. This is desperation wrapped in slapstick. Joey doesn't have money. He's not going to the concert. He's not getting to meet the band or the Hickey story, but he might get Jade by doing the same thing that Chandler did. And he's willing to fall on his face for it. And that's the episode. So here's what I want to name about the episode. It's the grief of not belonging because you can't afford it. Watching friends spend without thinking. Having to calculate every single thing. Being the one who has to say no. Feeling small in a group that you love. Refusing help because it feels like being labeled. And then, when someone else is in crisis, having to put your own pain on pause. And here's the thing, none of this is about being ungrateful or bitter. It's about dignity. It's about wanting to be included, not accommodated. It's about wanting friends who notice, not friends who perform. It's if you're that person with money in a mixed income friendship, the coaching is simple. Just notice. Ask questions. Don't assume, don't perform generosity and then expect gratitude. If you're the person without money, you don't have to shrink. You can say, I can't afford that. You can say, that doesn't feel okay. You can say, I need something different. And if you're in a group where the money gap is real and it's creating distance, you get to name it like Phoebe and Joey did. That's brave. That's work. That's disenFRIENDSchised. Season 2, episode 5. If this episode hit you, or if you're navigating money grief in your own friendships right now, you're not alone. Head over to TheNakedGrief.com to find a community that gets it, where grief is real, and so is the cost of belonging. What you'll find here is a private, judgment-free space to process what's changed, practical tools, prompts, and guidance that you can use right away, multiple styles of support, so you can choose what fits and switch if you need to. A path to find your footing, one small step at a time. If you're not ready for therapy or coaching yet, but you know you need something, you're in the right place. Stop by TheNakedGrief.com and learn more. Or keep showing up each week for episodes of disenFRIENDSchised to see what resonates with you. I'm Karen Bulinski Mathison, and I'll see you at the next episode. Thanks for being here. Da 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 da